Starting off this one in P4 with a 107.2. Top two guys are a decent amount ahead, so I'm not expecting to be fighting for first or second, maybe a podium. However, third and eventually fifth place here is going to get past me going into turn one. As we come onto the straight, I tuck behind him, so I'm going to settle into sixth for the first bit of this race. Coming around the long right-hander, I get a good run. I'm going to send it up the middle. Just think about it for a second before backing out, because that is, in my opinion, a really stupid decision to go 3 wide there, especially if you're the one in the middle. Now, with this super long straight on this track, as long as you're within a second of the person ahead, you'll probably catch up to them by the end of the straight. Some drama going on behind as they go 2 wide up the hill. Don't quite make it work. This guy tries to get around, but the space closes because the guy is not on his brakes. And meanwhile, we are actually having to defend P6 from the car behind, which we successfully do through the long right-hander, but we get kind of in our head and take a horrible line coming through the penultimate corner, ultimately losing some momentum and position 6. So we are now down into P7. The straight is going to lend itself to us as we get a really good run, and he backs out coming into the long right-hander. So back up into P6 and going to solidify that position for myself on the next corner. Eyes now back ahead and pursuing the red car again, which you can see there's a little bit of a fight going on ahead. 2 guys going side by side, making contact through the first turn. And I think that caused a little bit of animosity, because coming up the hill and they are going to go into each other, go spinning. That car goes right through me. Super fortunate there that I did not die. So we lose 1 position, gain 2, which is going to put us now into P5. Now coming into the first turn, and the light blue car is going to make an absolutely gorgeous move up the inside of car number 20. That straight gave him just enough speed, and then he managed the brakes masterfully. Now the blue car moves over to the left side, and the red car tries to follow him, and I get a little bit of contact. My car gets wobbly, ultimately end up putting him into the wall there. Somebody is saying to report, and it's not the guy I just murdered, it's these 2 guys, which I don't know if I could really say anybody there is worth reporting. Obviously both of their races just got ended, but it looked like the guy just lost grip. I was just curious to see what that was. Car ahead getting a little bit loose on the exit of turn 1, which is going to give us a bit of a better run going up the hill onto the straight, safely making it work and finalizing that move in the long right-hander at the end of the straight. That wasn't really anything due to me. That was more of him backing out and playing it safe, which I appreciate. Now, this black car here is P2, so we're currently sitting in P3, and this is going to be quite a battle. We constantly, just about every lap, I think we had about 9 laps left by the time we caught up to this guy, sending it around the outside at the end of the straight, and it's super hard to make that work. Also, credit to him for defending extremely efficiently, holding it super tight. He's still getting the power down, almost making it work that time. I think from the attacking side, what you really have to do to make that move work is pin them tight enough so that they can't get the power down in time to outrun you. Coming through the penultimate corner, we almost make it work there, but we do ultimately end up backing out. We took a little bit too narrow of a line, allowing him too much space, and it looks like we're pretty far back, but by the end of the straight, again, we're right back onto him. This was a pretty hopeful move that was never really on, so don't send that one too hard, as there's very, very low percentage of a chance that that one worked out for me. Coming back around once again, and we're a little bit too far back, a little bit too late, so we actually lift right there and just let him cut back in front of us, following him through on that one. However, I noticed that he slows down a lot. I'm almost, with lifting and braking early, able to send it around the outside, so in my head I'm thinking if he does that same line again, I will probably be able to make it work around the outside. Now I do have to defend going into turn 1 on this lap against the car behind. I didn't get the greatest exit on my final turn of the last lap. Me, this time, in the position of being on the inside for that long right-hander, which feels amazing. Defending that position is such a, I don't want to say effortless, but you definitely have the advantage when you're defending through that corner. Now on this lap, we move over pretty early with a good run, which is actually going to put us slightly ahead going into this turn. but the important part is coming out of it, so we have to hold him extremely tight. Also very fortunate that he didn't just let his car drift out. That is something you're kind of relying on when you're making this move, is that the inside car doesn't force you out wide, which in a way I feel like they are kind of entitled to. I was holding him super tight there, very respectful racing from him. We actually, not even sure we made contact. I think we may have gotten the net code 0 times, but finally get the move done. So we are up into second place with 2 laps remaining, I think, and we solidify that position. Unfortunately for the previously P2 car, or number 2 right there, he is going to spin out on the last turn of the last lap and fall down into P4, but we do claim P2, so pretty exciting race there. And that was actually our first race of the week on this track. We lost a ton of safety rating. We had 16 incident points, but we got a lot of champion points for that. If you want to see anything else, feel free to pause it there. Moving into another race I had later in the week that was super exciting, and we're starting on pole. Now, this is a lower split, so I pull away pretty quickly throughout the first couple of laps. This car behind me and the monster car does follow me as well. However, coming through lap 3, and I make a huge error getting on the gas, still holding a bit too much of an angle in my wheel as I go over that bump on the exit of turn 1, which is going to put me in the wall, and I fall all the way down into P7, I believe it is, tucking in behind the pink car, which some of you may know as Roxy. And at this point in the race, I am pretty upset with myself for botching that first corner. Also, coming into the first turn for a couple of laps, I start running into the back of this guy. He's braking super early. I even tried to move my braking point earlier, but was still hitting him. So I decided to send it up the hill just to try and avoid any more contact with that guy. I feel like our lines didn't quite line up too well. He gives me that position pretty effortlessly. Coming through the long right-hander, and the car number 3 goes wide, which puts us side by side for a second. We tuck to the inside just to kind of play with his head. We're not really looking for that move, but he does initiate a bit of oversteer on the exit, which is going to put us side by side, giving us the inside for the final corner, and we get the drive down in time. So now with a bit of a gap to P5 that is ahead of us, and we're going to try and make up as much time as we can. Unfortunately, we do a tandem with Roxy. Roxy does not catch it. We do, and that was my last straw, thinking I had already spun on that spot once before. We do lose 3 positions from that, so down into P8, unfortunately. And coming through the penultimate corner, P7 is going to come in and out of existence and then pull over to the side, which I appreciate massively. There's a lot of times I'll get stuck behind somebody whose car is bouncing up and down. If you play iRacing, you know what I mean. Now coming out of the corner after the straight, and P6 goes a bit wide, tucking back in front of me, and we're going to send it up his inside, just trying to make up positions as quickly as we can here. He does very well to hold that line through, and I don't really have anything to say in return about that. Great defense from him, and he continues to put up some great defense. Coming through the long right-hander once again, we're going to look to go around the outside, make a little bit of contact, and he's going to keep that position once again. However, on the next corner, I'm going to send it up once again. I know he's going to allow us space as he did last time, and I'm just kind of relying on him not to make his line work, which doesn't happen. Once again, beautiful defense from car number 6 ahead, and he's defending into the first turn as well, trying to break the slipstream a little bit, and I'm not sure if that's what got him into this trouble, but it does kind of look like he entered a bit narrow, and he spins off to the side there. It looks like I hit him, but I promise I didn't. Here is a little view of that. He does it all by himself, no contact made. So we are up into P5, and here goes P1 and 2, both spinning out on the final corner. Behind them, here comes P3, 4, and 5, and then us. We were actually in P6, excuse me. I think I said we were in P5 earlier. But so now up into 4th place, as the 2 leaders have just spun out, and the podium runners are all right next to each other, so I expect fighting, and sure enough, there is contact along the long right-hander. We then sweep through to pick up that position, so up into 3rd place, and P1 and 2 are at first seemingly working together, pushing each other down the straight. However, that is a treaty that is short-lived. As you can see, they're side by side, switching positions for the duration of the next 2 laps, allowing me to catch up. And once I get into slipstream, it is pretty much a 3-way battle for 1st place. Now, time is running out, but fortunately, it's looking like an opportunity has opened up for me here. car number 3 going wide into the long right-hander. He does very well to keep the inside line and stay in front of me throughout the final couple of turns. I am then thrown a massive bone as he doesn't quite brake hard enough going into the first turn, sending himself wide on the exit, and we are up into second place, also being followed by car number 2. So car number 3 went from P2 to P4, and I am now up into second position with a couple of laps left, and the race leader is going to go wide on the exit of turn 1, giving us a bit of a momentum plus the advantage of slipstream, and we close that gap up pretty quickly, probably about a half a second there. Now coming back into turn 1, and we make the braking zone work perfectly for us, getting right on his tail, actually lifting up on the gas as we come up the hill to allow ourselves a bit more space between our car and his so we don't run into him from the slipstream. Optimally, we want to pass him right as the straight starts, which we time it just about perfectly, moving to the left really early, trying to hold him to a tight line, but he does not want to be there, starts running into me, and I'm not sure if that's what does it, but he completely misses his braking marker, goes flying out wide, and we do a pretty safe cut back there, gaining the race lead. He also loses P2, so he's fighting with the car behind as we drive away into the distance. And I wanted to highlight this move in the battle for P2 on the last lap. He sends it super wide around the long right-hander, driving all the way out, and I think the black and yellow car was actually trying to keep a tight line to show respect, but this guy said, fuck that, I'm going all the way out, flying around, and unfortunately, it looks like he's going to lose the position to a switchback, but car number 2 just loses a bit of grip and actually slides into the pit lane, which upon leaving the pit lane, he gets a drive-through penalty. So from P2 on the last lap all the way down to ultimately P16 is where he landed with the penalty applied. But for us, that is a race win, super up and down race, and very fortunate that it worked out the way that it did. Here are the results for that one. I'll let you pause if you want to look at anything here. Not too exciting. This was the mid-split as well. Hopping into the Nürburgring Nordschleife this week, and it's going to kick off really quick. Car in front losing grip and causing an absolutely massive pile up. We're going to go cover this one pretty quickly. We fortunately get away here, but if you look at this, it's just like absolute mayhem of red light trap. I don't even know what to call that. Pretty much everybody gets put out there, and we escape safely in P5. So from P10 to P5 on only a couple of corners. Now I am super uncomfortable on this track. This is my first time ever racing on this track in this car. I've done one race in the GR86, and I don't want to talk about how that went. I wish I had a recording, but I don't. Oversteering and overcorrecting, and then straight into the barrier. That is going to cause a little bit of damage to my car. It's not quite steering straight, so it's going to be one of those races. You can see the car kind of throwing itself to the right and the left. The wheels are not aligned correctly. We are going to do our best to defend P5, however. And coming through towards the second carousel, we're going to take a little bit of that inside curb, which you should never do. It hops the car and then completely loses traction. So here we sit waiting on the track while we get passed by just about the entire grid. And I think eventually, once everybody is through and done, we are sitting in P16. So a pretty tremendous fall from P5 to 16, 11 positions. And we are going to end that one right there. Tires overheated, confidence at an all-time low. And yeah, definitely not my favorite track. However, I am practicing and racing some more, so we will come back to this one later this week with some more races. Now, just to update, we are in 32nd in the division standings for our division, which is Division 3. We are currently second to Valtteri by 15, about 22 points, if my math was correct there.